So I want to thank everybody for joining us here on a really serious subject. This is our livelihood. This is our friends. This is our family that we're here to talk about. That we're here to talk about today. And so I wanted to bring in a subject matter expert on this topic, all things labor and immigration, for the next installment of our people, process, and technology series here at Weathermatic. And so this one is the 2 million workers gone, the state of labor and the crisis in landscaping. Um, so with that said, quick introduction. So my name is Lex Mason, president at Weathermatic, based here out of Dallas, Texas. We help landscape companies now, over 350 landscape companies across the country, we've helped infuse over 400,000 labor hours back into their business with irrigation and labor automation technology. And I'm joined by Elliot Mason. Elliot, introduce yourself.
Hey, Elliot Mason, everyone, President, General Counsel of Unlimited Labor Solutions. We're the number one processor for green cards for unskilled workers, especially in the landscape industry, landscape construction. We also do H2B with the seasonal temporary labor and our whole temp to perm pipeline. So, yeah, excited to
Beautiful.
be here.
Well, Elliot, thank you so much for coming on. And for anyone who has not connected the dots yet, Elliot is my shorter, less good-looking younger brother. And so he's going to be our lead through this really important session. So all jokes aside, Weathermatic it's a family business, and so when times get tough for those who can relate to this in family business, families who has your back. And so what we wanted to do here, and our top, really the question, right? Why is Weathermatic talking about labor? Why did we bring this next people process technology session to focus on the people? Why are we talking about it? It goes back to my very first point. This right here, this is our number one livelihood in each of our businesses is our people. And so when our backs are against the wall, when there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that are out there, my habit is I want to run to family first. And so it just so happened that, Elliot is a leading attorney here in the Dallas area. He's helped now over 150 landscape companies here in the U.S. Navigate through this process from recruiting, H2B, perm, all the above. And so we wanted to partner and bring to you both our partners who are here on the call, current clients, of ULS, but then, quite a few people who might not have any idea what Weathermatic or Unlimited Labor, what we actually do. So we're appreciative for you all joining us here. But my goal here with this monthly series is to bring the experts and serve them up to our incredible audience who support our businesses so much. This is our way of giving back and helping cutting through all of the fluff and all the marketing that's out there and give you the facts, give you the details to help position your company for success in this upcoming 2026 year. So with that said, our mission for this session is to help landscape contractors thrive. Elliot, that's why I built this webinar, this monthly series, is one thing and one thing only: to help our partners, to help landscape contractors. This is the best industry in the world, in my opinion. So we want to help everyone thrive. So the reality is, right, I run a technology company, but the very best technology means absolutely nothing without the crews and the team members to run it. This labor crisis, it threatens our entire industry. It is the number one thing that I hear when I engage with our couple hundred partners and the thousand of companies that we engage with on an annual basis. Labor and immigration and how do we staff and run our businesses is by far and away the number one thing on people's minds. Our partners, Elliot, frankly, our partners directly are coming to us asking, hey, you've solved our irrigation labor problem. What more? That's not the only part of our business. What else can we do for the rest of our business to help fight against this? And so naturally, we can't ignore that claim. We can't ignore that question. And so, we've partnered with the experts to help you navigate, through this crisis. So here's our agenda today for everyone who's joined the call. We're going to unpack what is the actual labor crisis, what are things that have led into it, and then here, special just for this call, um, our collective teams have had an insider conversation with a ranking member at DHS, which uh, our intention is not to instill fear or fearmonger. It is just to give you and relay the message that we are actually hearing. We can debate the support or we can debate the dissent against some of the things that are going on out there. That is absolutely not Elliot or I's job or desire to do today is to call balls and strikes on it at all. Our job is just to relay to help you, go on offense, right? Relay the attitude and what the inside conversations are happening inside DHS today. So we're going to share a couple bullet points there. Again, not to stoke fear, but to instill reality of what's going on. Unpack a little bit about what this means for your business. And I'm again, if anyone joined us for our Chaos to Clarity a couple weeks ago, no webinar is worth attending unless there's something that you bring that you can do about it. So, Elliot and I have worked together to bring a quick step guide on what to do right now, how to level up and improve, business processes to help fight against what's going on, and then some practical action steps. So, again, commit to yourself right now. If you're going to take the hour to participate in this webinar, commit to doing something to advance it. So, with that, Elliot, thank you so much for being here. Buddy, tell us what is going on. What is the actual labor shortages that are threatening? What's going into all of this here? Enlighten us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me set the stage really quick so that we all are on kind of the same page. So specifically talking about the landscape industry, before all these deportations, before everything happened, there were more job openings in the landscaping industry than there were unemployed people in the United States. That was before 2025. At the beginning of the year, we saw one of the most historic resolutions with the one big beautiful bill, massive funding, billions of dollars into DHS, into deportations and everything. We were thinking, oh, is this really going to have any real effect? Fast forward to now, yes, it has had one of the biggest effects on deportations and labor that we've seen ever. Currently, there's been 2.5 million deportations happened all across America. That's between forcible removals and voluntary removals. And that's people with jobs, uh, especially within the blue collar industries. And that is such a massive number and a massive hit to our labor source that was already very, you know, iffy, very stagnant. I mean, we were already in a labor crisis before. I mean, how many of people on the call here have, had to hire 7 to 8 workers just to keep and retain one for a year? And now we're in a new situation where we have 2.5 million less people in the labor force, and we're trying to scramble around trying to find more workers now. So with that being said, H2B is a big part of the landscaping industry and how to find workers because it's really hard to find and recruit US workers here. And with H2B, every year there are 66,000 H2B visas that are allocated. Now that's split over the two caps. There's 33,000 for April 1st and 33,000 for October 1st. So that's all we get. Now, there's another possible 60,000 total for supplementals, returning workers, Northern Triangle workers, but that has to be approved by Congress. We're in a very tough spot right now to where, because of the government shutdown that happened, because Congress can't get their act together, and because we haven't had enough, lobbying efforts that pushes this through, we have not gotten our supplemental visas yet, and it's December, and we're about to file for our H-2B visas. So we just have 33,000 going into 4-1. That's horrific. There are, and in 2025 alone, for the 2025 season, there were over 250,000 applicants for just 66,000 visas. And now that we have had 2.5 million deportations, those companies are going to have to find another avenue to get legal workers now when H2B was the only way that we could.
Yeah,
And
Elliot,
we
the
have
point
not.
here that is just astounding to me is with 66,000 with a potential additional 60.
Hmm.
Last year, before all of this madness, we were oversubscribed on the program by a quarter million. So
Hmm.
a quarter million oversubscribed, and we just vacated 10 times that amount. 10
Yes.
times of that labor force has just left the country. Um, and as we'll see on the following slide, what the attitude is moving forward. So if we think that H2B has been competitive, uh, get ready. The competition there and what's
About
going
to
to be
be the
going on
worst
there,
season for H2B yet if we don't get this right.
that
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So the point of all that is there are deportations. We have no off ramp with this. So we need to find other avenues through this. But yeah, we can go into the next slide.
So
So
here it's when you brought me into this and understanding this conversation. So I know we're not here to bring up people's names, put anyone on the hot seat. If you want to reach out and have a private discussion, happy to do so to kind of validate this, but that's not our intention of today. This is the shock. This is the shock and awe of what the attitude is internal right now with DHS. And again, agree, disagree. If it makes you happy, if it makes you angry, we're not here to discuss all that. We're just here to relay the conversation that took place with a ranking DHS official who is, frankly, has his hands all over this program. So, Elliot, what was communicated here?
So with DHS is the parent agency of the U.S. Citizenship, Immigration Services, ICE, other immigration enforcement and agencies. And so half of their job is obviously the immigration enforcement, deportations, removal, but it's also to help with, the naturalization, green cards, temporary work visas. So they have a balance. But when we had a conversation with this official, it was, well, I mean, the quotes kind of speak for themselves. I don't care if I bankrupt every last company. I'm deporting illegal workers. I don't care about your company owners' little bank accounts. Uh, they said that they're going to try to hold corporate America liable for all the actions of their illegal workers, which is bizarre.
It's such a absurd and just crazy statement,
Yeah.
blanket statement. Frankly, I mean, I'll say that. Considering the state of our industry and I mean the backbone and what we do in the community in and around these communities, to have a stance like this without an off ramp or without a supplemental plan of what we do to solve the problem, we've got to act and we've got to act quickly.
Yeah, to go from several administrations that were promoting this to now saying because you did exactly what previous administrations said, we're going to punish you personally is, I mean, we can't have a system like that. And obviously, we're all feeling the hurt from it. But to further that, they said 2.5 million deportations. That's too slow for us. We're going to double that in 2026 to 5 million. We've already seen a couple of weeks ago where the administration said they have replaced 12 field managers of ICE with CBP personnel, which CBP is much more aggressive in their tactics at getting deportations and removals. And I just the sentiment around all this is that we don't care about the economy, and this is what was said. We don't care about the economy. That's not our job. Our job is to deport people. And when we say, well, your other half of your job is to make sure that we can process these people, immigrants, people are trying to come over legally, it made it seem that, their primary concern was about purely deportations.
So we want to flip the script here. We want to jump into that's what's going on. That's what's being communicated at a very high level. Frankly, Elliot, I mean, now working with over 350 landscape companies, in the industry. I mean, and I'm in direct communications with at least half of them on an annual basis, right? The uh, a vast majority. meaning truly a majority of these have already felt the impact of what's happened in 2025, and sounds like we're doing nothing but turning up the heat in 2026. So, what does this mean for our businesses collectively, in the strategic immigration and business survival? The thing that I want to frame here outside of Elliot's going to walk us through kind of the labor solutions directly, but this is the mindset shift that I want to leave with everybody on this call here today. If this is the number one thing, if labor and immigration is the number one thing impacting our industry, then what we must do is everything in our power to decrease the consumption of labor while maintaining or growing our gross margins. And I want to park on that for just 2 seconds. It is not do one thing, it is not do two things. The answer is we've got to do everything in our power, everything in our know-how that drives down our consumption of labor while preserving gross margin. And so before, an ROI kind of based deal of, hey, if we invest in this piece of tech and it gives us a 2x or a 3x return, that's a great deal. That paradigm or that kind of value ROI based model, that has to shift now that an underlying assumption has changed. And so every hour of labor that we can redirect, every hour of contribution labor that we can redirect from a physical workforce into a piece of technology that does not erode gross margin, that now pencils. And so we've got to do everything. Elliot, walk us through the kind of the shift of mind in terms of our immigration and kind of labor management workforce here.
So your old style of filing for H-2B, your old style of immigration to get your labor is gone. It's dead. You have to change right now. There's no more send in your information to your processor and then see if you're going to get screwed in a couple months or not. We cannot do that. The labor pool is not there anymore. We have to get creative and aggressive in our H-2B strategy and our filings. If your processor is not calling you every day, say, hey, the strategy has changed, policies have changed, the government shut down. We need to pivot to doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, we're not getting our supplemental visas. We need to change our strategy. Here's how we do that. Then you are with the wrong processor. You have to get aggressive. You have to be proactive in this. Times have changed now. We have to also pivot from just thinking we can have our permanent labor force be on these temporary visas. That's not the point of it, and we can't do it anymore. We have to utilize H-2B now to have a permanent pipeline of workers to go from temporary H-2B to now to permanent green cards. Okay. And if you do delay in getting this, and if companies that do have delays, I mean, you could lose your workforce. I mean, even if you do get certified and have your workers approved, no, it could still be delayed. They can still get delayed at the consulate for months and months. I'm sure there's plenty of people on here that's had that happen. So even if you do win the lottery, you're still not guaranteed to get your workers. So why would you continue to go in every year to a program that is just designed to, take you out at your knees?
Yeah,
So
it's a great point, right? We got to get more creative, and I know the next section we're going to focus on how to do that.
mhm.
Here's one thing that might not be on everybody's radar because not everybody's focused. Everyone on this call is at a different stage, in their business, right? Whether you're in the building mode, the startup mode, the building and scaling mode, whether you're preparing for a private equity exit, maybe you're preparing for a second generation, right? Like our business here, right? Family business to preparing the second generation to run it. Here is something to consider. And this was Elliot, when you kind of walked me through this, and then I was able to kind of go and verify this with two of the investment bankers that focus on landscape businesses here. One, pre-acquisition labor audits are becoming standard in any kind of PE or majority buyout scenarios. So if you are looking or considering to liquidate your landscape company, you're looking to do a merger, you're looking to go get a bank loan to buy out, one of your friendly competitors down the street, regardless of the scale of a transaction that you're looking at, pre-acquisition labor audits are now becoming the standard. And I've got another point down here at the bottom. The dollar amount estimated by two of the leading investment banks that work in the landscape industry is a $200,000 premium per legal worker, and nearly and a little bit more than that in valuation uh, auditable without auditable legal workforce. Acquisitions now, and this is kind of my favorite point here. Acquisitions are now being targeted based on the labor strength and documentation versus the strength of client base in a business. Right. So when someone's coming in and valuing a business and looking at, hey, who are we going to buy in the strategic market that we want to enter, regardless of where it is in the country, right? The number one thing that the private equity firms are looking at, very first, certainly, yes, is EBITDA and strength of balance sheet, all those kind of things, potential growth capacity. But the labor documentation is top of that list compared to the client base. And this is the shocking thing to me. Had a client of ours come and who actually declined to proceed with the transaction for a fairly obvious reason. But now there is commonplace in the M&A space that are asking the business owners to sign a recourseable audit, a recourse letter, a recourse commitment for labor audits post close. And what that means is that they're asking someone, the business owner, before a transaction can close, to certify the state of their labor, and that if it's misrepresented, can be recourseable post close upon further valuation. That is a paradigm that has not existed before. And so my point here would be, whether you are positioning for a private equity deal, whether you're positioning to do a sale, or frankly, whether you're positioning for your next generation to take and run with the business that, or your team do an ESOP, position your team to run it for the next one. We've got to do our jobs here to strengthen our labor and documentation efforts to prepare for an exit or to prepare for a transition. Passing the buck to the next generation, passing the buck through an ESOP of this problem doesn't solve it. And so the bottom line, legal workforce equals a massive valuation advantage that frankly in the 3, 4, 5 years previous to this was not as evident. Today it is. Um, Elliot, walk us through kind of the attraction, the green cards, what we think that can do, for businesses. How does this, let's now get to the positive. What can we do? How do we start working together to make an impact in these businesses? Tell us about the attraction of green cards.
Yeah, absolutely. So the EB3 green cards, the employment-based green card for these unskilled workers, and that is the number one way to secure a permanent workforce and to get out of this mess of what H-2B is. That is the only way that we can do that. And like I was saying before, you have to hire 7 to 8 US workers just to retain one for 1 year. That's massive. This is a much cheaper, much more cost-efficient way to retain and recruit permanent workers. And with this, this is a massive recruiting tool to get top talent in landscaping and construction with these green cards because these people talk. You can market it and say, hey, if you stay on the company for a certain amount of years, we sponsor green cards for our top performers. We sponsor it for foremen, for drivers. This is a great way to get and retain your labor pool. And then with that, their families come up, their families want to join in, and you're doubling, tripling your workforce. We see it all the time. We've had clients come to us saying, hey, I need to get on this EB3 thing right now because my workers just left for another company that's sponsoring EB3. So, it's not enough just to kind of have your people in this H2B. They want permanency. They want consistency of their work, period.
And people talk. And now that, I mean, frankly,
Mhm.
because of what ELS is doing at really just making the EB3 pathway, right, which is green card, so known in this industry. Like this industry is a lot tighter, a lot more communicative than almost any other industry out there, right? We all know each other. People talk. And so with the proliferation of EB3, like your team members right now, those people that you cannot live without that are on the H2B program, If EB3 is not in your employee perks and benefits package and it's known, they're going to hear about it from somebody else here in town that is offering a path to a green card, that is sponsoring that long term play with that employee. And so, my advice to everybody here on the call, again, one of the takeaway nuggets, um, if we're looking at the benefits package, maybe, hey, maybe we can't do healthcare, maybe we can't do this or we can't do that right now, whatever it may be. This is such a slam dunk home run to be able to include either an entire sponsorship or a 50-50. ULS has some unique ways of how they kind of split those costs, which you can reach out, to Elliot afterwards and get some of their advice there on how to structure a partnership in that, because there's some things that the employee does have to pay for, and there's other things that the employer can sponsor. But what a wonderful perk for the men and women that do so much for our wonderful industry and for our businesses here. Um, so that was, kind of the first thing about what we can do is that we can structure our benefits package to include things like immigration support and legal fee support and partnerships there. But Elliot, let's dive into there's our whole series really comes down to what do we do to bolster and amplify our workforce, to amplify our business. We see it coming down into three categories, and we break it down into people, process, and the technology that should wrap around the whole thing. So, Elliot, what can we do in our people case here to build a foundation for a legal workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one is we have to do the I-9 audits. We have to make sure that we are completely compliant with your companies now. There is no other option. With that, getting on your H-2B, but not just sitting on H-2B. We're using H-2B as your pipeline to get your permanent workers. They can still come over to the US, still work as normal, but the point is we have to get them off in the 3 to 5 year period to get the green cards. We have to do that. We have to get your permanent workforce stability in there. That's what the temp to perm means. With the green cards, you have a hiring advantage, like we were talking about that people talk, they want to come to a place where they can get green cards. Because, I mean, even for them, it's job security. If they're not getting their HV visas because your company's capped out, they have to go maybe find another company. But at that point, it might be too late. And then they don't make money like they do in that year. So they are trying to find somebody that they can have attached to for a long period of time. They want that loyalty. Um, and again, it's just all about the temporary to the permanent pipeline system. Nobody's really talking about that because other processors just kind of want the recurring revenue of the H2B over and over. They don't really want to help navigate this process. They don't want to lose out on, clients and customers. Whereas what we want is to help your company grow. If we can help your company grow and get to the permanent workers, then we're happy. We want to serve our industry really well.
And just a point there I want to make here. So, because you might be looking at Elliot and I going, hey, why are these guys talking about this? Elliot's wife lived through some of this with her mother. And so that the sensitivity here with us of when you hear Elliot talk about um, hey, other processors, other firms, other businesses who manipulate this entire or, come at it from a different perspective, if I want to put it in the most positive light, um, who are so interested in the recurring revenue aspect of the H2B. Every year they get a processing fee, every year they get that versus the kind of one and done aspect of EB3 that achieves that green card, achieves that permanent strategy. That is, I mean, it's a natural. I'll say it. I know Elliot might not be able to, but it presents a conflict. It presents a conflict of interest for the typical processing firm to move from a virtually guaranteed recurring revenue stream to a one-time kind of fee based that moves someone from temp recurring over to a permanent one-time fee deal. And that's really that kind of the unique difference between that and why you might not have heard about it, why it might not be marketed as much. So it's a major thing for your business. It's a major thing for the men and women who do so much to support our great businesses that are a part of that H2B program. So Elliot, I mean, thank you for what you're doing to help bring something to this industry that is has really not been talked about nearly enough, which is the EB3 conversion.
Yeah, there's hardly any incentive for other processors to do this, and we've seen that a lot. And quite frankly, they can't compete whenever we present our temp to perm pipeline, because that is for the overall health of the business. We have no other alternative motive except for just helping the people that we've helped for the last 30 plus years with Weathermatic and with all of our other companies. So we this is our base, and we want to help everybody in the landscape industry.
So give us a couple creative filing strategies. So you talked about that before. So I hear we got to get I-9 audits done right now, whether you're participating in
Absolutely.
H2B or not. We got to get the audits done across the board, whether you're positioning for an acquisition, you're positioning for sale, you're positioning for, kind of next generation, hand or an ESOP. You got to get an audit done. You got to use, and keyword, use H2B as the gateway for permanent EB3 conversion that
Hmm.
leads to the family process as well from there. Um, and so I love that three-step, I-9, H2B, EB3, right? So many letters and numbers, but that's the workflow of it, right?
Yep.
Talk to us about some of the creative, filing strategies, some of the multi-year planning that you can advise our participants here on how to be different, how to stack the deck in their favor.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do with our clients, I mean, even if it's a current client that wants to start an H2B or anything, we will do a full business assessment with you that goes through, sees, okay, how does your business operate in the seasonality? What markets does it operate out of? How can we maybe increase the number of filings to be the most that we can? Because it's just a numbers game now. Why would we want to put all of our eggs into one basket, one application, if we can spread that around? If you have offices in Houston versus Dallas, if you have multiple offices, if you're looking at acquisitions, how can we maximize the number of potential filings to get the most return on that? Even with that, a lot of what a lot of people don't know about is these transfer cases of even if you are certified, but even if you do not get approved for your workers, if you get capped out, you can still have transfer workers. So you need some processor or some recruiter, like what we do, that will basically find your transfer workers that would be, quote, cap exempt. A lot of that happens in, the October 1st cap. But yeah, you need somebody that will help find your workers and not just, say, oh, you got capped out. Oh, so sorry, you're screwed for this year. You need to find, alternative ways to get your workers. Just because you didn't get your workers doesn't mean that, you're up. There's always something that we can do.
And I know that timing's everything, which is an easy way to, kind of cop out. But I mean, what was enlightening to me when I came over and did a tour and really got to, put hands on is you were in the middle of filing for one of our mutual customers, and showing me just the quantity of paperwork required to go through this process. And so I remember walking into your office and seeing a stack of paper, I mean, 18 inches, 24 inches tall, and going, man, how many companies is this? Everyone that you've done this year? And your response, I'll never admit it. You're like, no, that's half of one company that we're doing this week.
Yeah.
And it was a 2 foot tall stack of paperwork required to go do it. So timing is everything. This is not a swift, quick thing. And with now just the rampant demand that the demand increase that's here. I mean, the truly the faster you can get in line, right, for something like this, the better. Uh,
Hmm.
but this business centric, immigration approach of how do we amplify our workforce to continue doing not, and this is a point I want to make. It's not just the foreign, workforce and H2B. It's we've got to do everything in our power to amplify our domestic recruiting and continue to push, push, push hard there. Um, while also doing everything in our power to play this game as well. And so I'll skip on to the next point here. But how do we make the most of our people? And so we move from people to process, and we'll end on technology. Process is about how do we optimize our workforce once we have it. The automation and standard operating procedures that multiply productivity, clear roles, definitions, and accountability, standardized workflows to reduce training time, and quality systems that reduce callbacks. These are all, kind of headline things that you hear about, right? My point on these are just because we win the labor game, just because we win the secure workforce game, does not release us from doing everything that we can to optimize our core business processes to go win. And so, an example of what we do on the Weathermatic side for the irrigation divisions is we build out the repair kits. For every single one of our clients, we build out repair kits that optimize the labor consumption, that optimize, hey, how can we reduce the amount of time spent in the field there for those irrigation technicians and the back office administration. Pre-configured, system, checks and audits. So we've built a team of people that can advise and help. What's the most efficient way to complete this workflow that ultimately leads to less guesswork and more efficiency? So people, process, so fewer workers to accomplish what's right. And so I'm going to anchor on this point again and again and again. We as an industry must do everything in our power to drive down our consumption of labor through the use of immigration opportunities, through the use of strategic standard operating procedures and automations, and all of that with a piece of technology that can wrap around it. And so, SmartLink really brings a reduction in labor dependence to centralize irrigation operations from one location, fewer trucks needed on site. And so, again, anything that we can do to shift hours from people into technology to create that additional labor capacity, we've got to be doing everything that we can and searching for the companies like ULS that can help on the labor side, searching for companies like Weathermatic that can happen on the process and the technology side to really amplify and scale your workforce. So, Elliot, any comments on, hey, process and technology just as a whole, inside or outside of the immigration, kind of call to action here that we can anchor on?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big areas that we look at whenever we're doing our immigration filings is we look for those guys that are the skilled workers that have, managerial capacity, that have maybe, 2 years plus experience in this field. And we look and see, are they foremen? Can they become what's called a skilled worker for immigration purposes? And I mean, that alone takes off, several years from the process. So we want to make sure that we can look, identify, and retain these highly skilled workers so that we can get them through the process quicker. And it's about the same process for us. You don't really notice a difference from y'all's side, but and that's a very big advantage, I would say, with those highly skilled workers. So if they are doing SmartLink training, if they're doing any kind of tech repair training, something that makes them more skilled, we really want to look at that. That's crucial.
Because it's relief from it makes them eligible for different immigration paths, right? So
Yes.
the more
Yeah.
skill that we can infuse, the more technology skills that we can instill and train into our individuals. That right there, I think that's a golden nugget that everybody should take away. And I mean that might be a great kind of reason to reach out and build this plan. Is how do we move from the unskilled class, which, by the way, I hate that term for whatever it's worth. I'm not
They're
the one
not
who created
unskilled.
it.
They're very
It,
skilled.
I think it's the craziest term in the world to refer to it as that, but to use the governmental word there, to move people from the unskilled category into the skilled category. That's another thing that I have seen very few landscape companies and construction companies in this space utilize. That's a big one right there. It's a different pool, different competition. So it's not one, back to my point, it's not do one thing, it's do everything that preserves or grows margin. We have to do that decreases our consumption of labor in our service businesses. So, um, next steps around, kind of labor and immigration. I think we've summarized this, but Elliot, hit this for us real quick. You've got some key dates, kind of scattered in here as well. Run us through here in the final couple minutes. Give us land the plane for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one thing that you want to do is you want to do your I-9 audits. You want to make sure you are completely compliant right now. It's at least a $11,000 fine per person per instance every time that the government comes and finds someone that has no work authorization. And they're going to be very, very aggressive in that now. It used to be, hey, like we're going to make a scheduled call, we're going to come look at your books. Now they can just pop up and do what's called a raid. So you want to make sure you're completely compliant in that today. And then beyond that is obviously the H-2B to permanent workforce pathway. You want to make sure that you're getting your workers to that green card so we can secure your permanent workforce right now. Utilizing the skilled workers, utilizing the foreman that we were just talking about. We want to also look at the ways that we can expand H-2B filings to increase your odds of getting, your H-2B and finding these pathways to get, transfer workers, and we want to make sure we can get as many workers in as possible. And then obviously, implementing your systems and accountability, hold up with compliance, hold up with your audits, and making sure that you can recruit and retain these great workers. This is going to be a fantastic way to get more highly skilled individuals on your team.
Absolutely. So thank you, Elliot, so much for giving us kind of the inside track on how to think about this. I'm gonna wrap us up here, and then we're gonna Elliot's gonna hang on for a couple more minutes as well. Just if there's any questions, we want to leave the last 10, 15 minutes here so open for any feedback, kind of questions right off the bat. But one thing to circle back, why am I leading this series? Why are we talking about things like labor? Why are we pulling in communication techniques and skills from our previous webinar, and in the future we're going to talk to private equity groups, we're going to talk to family business transition groups. Ultimately, I am incredibly passionate about helping just perpetuate this incredible industry. It's what I grew up in. It's our family business as well. It's what I know. And so every day that we operate here at Weathermatic, our goal is to help our partners grow and scale their business and also protect what they've, blood, sweat, and cried over to build over, multiple generations and for generations to come. And so we're taking a dose of our own medicine, is to do not one thing, but to do everything that we can to decrease our labor consumption while preserving and increasing margin. And so my mission here, in December, but also into 2026, is to bring to you the 12 most critical, um, bring together the 12 most critical voices that this industry needs to hear to prepare and amplify their impact into 2026. And so, if any of this resonated with you here today, whether you're a current partner and of ours, and you're sitting out there going, "Hey, we want to dial up what we're doing today in irrigation. We haven't reached that 25% penetration rate today. We don't feel like, hey, like we've truly wrung all, squeezed all the juice out of the labor lemon in our irrigation division. We want to help you dial that up and amplify it. We have built the most incredible onboarding and customer success team that this industry has ever seen. We'd love to infuse more help there where it's needed. If you're not familiar with what Weathermatic does, we would love to get connected to you and help support that. If you're out there going, "Hey, look, irrigation's a small part of my business. It's not a money maker. Heck, we might lose money in it." That is the reason why we should talk and get together. It is a major profit center for our partners, and so we'd love to engage there. So scan that QR link there on top if you'd like a free, no strings attached. Happy to look over your shoulder, see how we can impact that part of your business. And then number two below, if you'd like to get in touch with Elliot and the greater ULS team to talk about, hey, what does an audit look like? What am I getting into? What are the ramifications if it doesn't go so well? What do we do once we have that audit back? Or if you're ready to get started, right, reach out to them. There's a QR code there that you can scan real fast. Also, feel free to send an email. I think we've got a follow-up email that'll go out to everybody if you want to reach out. Super easy. And with both groups, no strings attached. We believe in kind of giving information away and helping you make the right choice. And we trust that when it comes down to it, we'd love to earn your business there. But number one, we want to be a resource for you in all things. So, Elliot, thank you so much for coming and sharing this. And any final words, and then we'll kind of open up the floor for any kind of questions and commentary to wrap up. So, thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Had a great time. Yeah, I see some very good questions coming in. Let's see, one from Travis. EB3 is definitely the best option to retain your labor force. This process is very time consuming. What can a business do now for the H2B? So, yeah. So with what we do that makes us different from everybody else is that we want to take as much work off of the company and the client as possible because we're the experts. We need to be the ones to do this process for you. You don't need to be the ones out there, gathering the information, filling out the paperwork and doing all that. We've had so many stories of, other clients, other companies that were basically forced to do this whole process themselves and then just file it themselves. And like, what are we paying the attorneys to do this for?
Yeah.
So we have a fully bilingual intake staff team that will reach out to your workers, communicates with them over WhatsApp, over phone calls. We'll have meetings with them, walk them through, make sure they know exactly what's going on. We do all the paperwork, all the filing, everything. We want to make your life easier. We know this is, a little bit more work on your part, but we want to make sure that your HR department is operating like a top. We don't want to put any more stress on them.
Hey Elliot, I'm gonna go rapid fire through some of the comment questions real quick, and then we kind of open up the floor. So Eddie asked, "Hey, is EB3 a separate application from H2B?" I can answer that one. Yes, completely independent.
Yep.
While H2B does shortcut and kind of exempt you from some of the forms and applications, it is absolutely an independent application. Anything further to add there?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's much of a shortcut. I would say it's required to get your workers here. You got to do it. Now, I would say, yeah, a little bit of a shortcut with knowing who your target is for who you want to sponsor and getting their information. I would say, yes, that is definitely very crucial of having them on H2B. You want to know, you want to train and vet them. Is this going to be a good worker or not? And it is definitely a first come, first serve process. So different from H2B. EB3 is if you filed today and I file a month from now, you're going to get yours back before mine. Okay. So that is why it is critical to start your prevailing wage for EB3 now. You got to start it now because people are filing every day and it is very, very advantageous if you file it the sooner. And that's why we file immediately. We can do our company assessment. We can do our worker assessment after that.
All right, short and sweet, buddy. We got like 10 more minutes and about 20 more
I
questions.
gotta, I gotta give the knowledge that people want.
No, shorten it up. All right. So next one, Al, my buddy Alan from Reno, Reno Green out there. So can you talk a little bit about prevailing wage rate determination for H2B and EB3? We've seen this rate go up 12 to 15% year over year past several years, where it's just not competitive anymore compared to domestic work. Like, are you seeing this trend continue? And is this methodology somehow changing in this calculation? Anything about prevailing wage, Elliot, in a minute or less?
Yeah. So with H2B, I mean, that's very dependent on where you are in the world. It's sometimes it changes, sometimes it increases, sometimes it doesn't, kind of stays around, the same, within 5% year over year. Some bigger markets, or changing markets, they do change. It's just depending on what the government determines with the prevailing wage. For the EB3, that typically comes back less than what H2B prevailing wage rate comes back at. However, we still have to market and offer the wage of whatever H2B is for that year for EB3. So even though EB3 might come back lower, we would still have to offer whatever the wage is for that year. And then that's obviously what's offered for 3, 4 years down the road whenever they get their green card.
I'm imagining I know the answer to this question too, but Tim asked, how long does the temp to perm process take? Does the labor, that's the first question. And then second, does the labor in the process remain H2B until green card is issued?
Mhm.
No, it varies widely, especially with shutdown and things like that. So give us any perspective on length and then the H2B, do they stay on H2B until that point?
Yeah, so with the quote unskilled workers, just the regular laborers, the process takes 4 years, maybe 5 years. If we are looking at the skilled workers for the foreman, then that would be at least a year less. So we're looking about the 3 to 4 year mark for those, which is why it's so critical we find who are the foremen, can we get them under a skilled position? And with H2B, H2B is a separate process. EB3 will run in the background. So these guys come up on H2B. They're here, they're working. We're working with their seasonality up until the very end when we file or we get their green card. So some stuff has changed. I don't want to go into it right now, but yes, they'll be on H2B until they get their green card.
Perfect. Can someone already here file for H2B?
No. They have to be in their home country and get on H2B there, which is why it is so critical that we get compliant now, do your I-9 audits. We cannot have people here that do not have work authorization, or else the company is going to be a red flag for DHS.
I think I understand this question, but Elliot, if someone's already in the process for H2B
Mhm.
and B3, is it possible to go H2A? Why is there no cap on H2A? Is this the best option for the amount of labor needed and the cap on H2B?
Hashtag not legal advice, but please do not switch your H2B workers to H2A. That is a very big red flag that DHS and everyone is investigating right now, because there has been a whole lot of fraud and abuse under that, of people that say, oh, well, I got, a 5 by 5 square of turf out in the back, and, I got my H2A guys. But, now I'm going to put them on landscaping duty because we don't have enough. Please don't do that. If you are using H2A, that is for agricultural reasons, which that's why there is no cap, because we want to make sure that we can grow our food, and we don't want to kneecap ourselves with, who's growing our food. Um, that's the skinny of it.
Next, so if someone does experience, a raid, or someone does experience an unannounced audit, like what should they do in theory? Like what's that? I know we can't give legal advice
Call a
here on
lawyer.
the call, but give me
Yeah.
any kind of advice you can share here.
Call a lawyer. You got to call a lawyer. There are things that you will have to produce within, a certain amount of hours. Certain areas that, is basically like a trap or a pitfall that if you don't know what you're doing, you will have some major consequences. So please call a
Have
lawyer.
you all been called into a scenario like that?
We have. It's not exactly what we specialize in of these types of raids, but we do help.
Great. Okay, so we can point you can point people in the right direction.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Perfect. Anything else? I think I covered most everything in the chat here. But please feel free to drop anything else. We got 4 or 5 more minutes left here. Happy to stick on. Um, is anyone else experience H2B workers being keyed as HB1 workers when they go through customs?
That's interesting. Usually, what we see is if they have a H-2B visa, they'll be misidentified or misclassified as H-2A workers. That might be kind of what they're doing. It's just a um, an error on the part of the agent or the certifying officer. They just key it in wrong. They would have to go. The worker themselves would have to go and submit a request to have that changed.
Beautiful. Um, let's see. Well, I think we've ended the stream of questions. So, Elliot, thank you so much. Again, my name's Lex Mason, president of Weathermatic. We've helped infuse over 500,000 labor hours back into landscape companies, irrigation divisions through technology, people, and process. Would love to help you. Elliot, thank you for joining and help us walk the tightrope, literally and metaphorically, which is the labor and immigration crisis today. It's a family business, obviously, for us, and I know for many of you all out there. We want to do everything that we can to bring you the people and the subject matter experts to help you navigate these wild times. So thank you for spending your hour with us here today. We'll send out a recording to everyone who registered for this, and please don't hesitate to reach out and be on the lookout for our next people, process, and technology series. Thank you all so much. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.